The geography of Switzerland encompasses the geographical features of Switzerland, a mountainous and landlocked country located in Western and Central Europe. It is surrounded by 5 countries: Austria and Liechtenstein to the east, France to the west, Italy to the south and Germany to the north. Switzerland has a maximum north-south length of 220 kilometers and an east-west length of about 350 kilometers. Switzerland is well known for the Alps in the south and southeast. North of the Alps, the Swiss plateau runs along the east-west axis of the country. Most of the population of Switzerland lives on the rolling hills and plains of the plateau. The smaller Jura Mountains are located on the northwest side of the plateau. Much of the northern border with Germany follows the Rhine River, though the Rhine enters Switzerland near Schaffhausen. The eastern border with Germany and a portion of Austria is drawn through Lake Constance. A portion of the southwest border with France is drawn through Lake Geneva. Switzerland is divided into 26 sovereign cantons. The cantons along the Swiss plateau tend to be the most populous, industrial and religiously Protestant. The cantons in the Alps tend to be less populous, Catholic, and have an agrarian or tourism-based economy. Switzerland is also divided by language. From Bern east the population generally speaks German. West of Bern, the population generally speaks French. In the southern canton of Ticino, most people speak Italian. Romansh, a group of dialects descended from Vulgar Latin, is spoken in several regions in the canton of Graubünden. Physical description: Switzerland extends between the parallels 45 degrees 49.05 and 47 degrees 48.30 lat. and the meridians 5 degrees 57.23 and 10 degrees 29.31 long. It forms an irregular quadrilateral, of which the greatest length from east to west is 350 kilometers, and the greatest breadth from north to south is nearly 220 kilometers. Switzerland is a landlocked country, the closest coastline being at the Gulf of Genoa, 160 kilometers south of Chiasso. Its political boundaries often do not coincide with those of nature. The entire canton of Ticino is south of the Alps, as are the valleys of Simplone, Messico, Bregaglia, Bacciavo and Mustere. The whole canton of Schaffhausen and part of that of Basel are north of the Rhine, while a large part of Graubünden lies to the east of the Rhine basin, and Porrentruy is far down on the western slope of the Jura. Putting these exceptional cases aside, the physical geography of Switzerland may thus be described. On the south runs the main chain of the Alps, which is joined, at Mont Dolent near Martigny, by the lower ranges that rise south of Lake Geneva, and which continues partly Swiss till close to Piz-Edlad on the east. To the north of this main chain there is another great range of mountains only slightly inferior in extent and height, which starts from the hills known as the Jorat Range above Lausanne, and culminates in the great snowy summits of the Bernese Alps and of the Todi group, before trending to the north near Chur, and, after rising once more in the Santis group, dies away on the southern shore of Lake Constance. The Swiss portion of the main chain of the Alps and the Great Northern Outlier run parallel to each other from Martigny to near Chur, while for a short distance they actually unite near Pizzo Rotondo, parting again near the Oberalp Pass. Between these two great snow-clad ranges flow two of the mightiest European rivers, the Rhone towards the west and the Rhine towards the east, their headwaters being only separated by the tangled mountain mass between Pizzo Rotondo and the Oberalp Pass, which sends the Reuss towards the north and the Ticino towards the south. To the north of the Great Northern Outlier rises the Jura Range, a huge spur of the Alps, while between the Northern Outlier and the Jura extends what may be called the plains or plateau of Switzerland, consisting all but wholly of the undulating valley of the Ahr with its numerous affluents. To that river valley, the valley of the Thur, that lies between the Ahr basin and the Rhine basin, must be added. Putting aside the valleys of the Ticino and Inn, Switzerland may thus be described as consisting of three great river valleys, with the smaller one of the Thur, which all lie to the north of the main chain of the Alps and include the region between the Alps and the Jura. If matters are examined more carefully, it can be noted that the Rhone and Rhine valleys are shut off from that of the Ahr by the great northern outlier of the Alps, which consists of the Bernese and Glarus Alps. Two wide and undulating valleys and two deeply cut trenches thus lie on the northern slope of the Alps, to the north and south respectively of the great northern outlier of the Alps. The main chain of the Alps rises in Swiss territory to the height of 4,634 meters in the loftiest summit or Vorspitze of Monte Rosa, though the Dom, in the Mischabel range, is the highest mountain mass which is entirely within Switzerland. The Great Northern Outlier attains a height of 4,274 meters in the Pfisterer Horn, while the lowest level within the Confederation is on Lake Maggiore. The highest permanently inhabited village in Switzerland is Juf, at the head of the Avers Valley, while the lowest is Ascona, on Lake Maggiore. Geology. Different geological phenomena shaped the actual landscapes of Switzerland. The alpine orogeny had the most visible consequences nowadays. This term designates the entire geological movements that conducted to the formation of the Alps. A crystalline basement formed at the beginning of the Paleozoic era, between 540 and 360 million years ago. Later, between 205 and 96 million years ago, the Alpine Ocean or Tethys Ocean formed between Eurasia and Africa. The ocean reached its maximum width at the end of Jurassic period, 135 million years ago. The collision between the Eurasian and African plates made it progressively disappear. This plate collision, still in progress, began 100 million years ago. The Alpine chain resulted from this geological movement, the two plates creating folding zones. The central plateau is mainly composed of melassa, a sedimentary rock which formed at the bottom of the old ocean. Switzerland is situated on a relatively quiet tectonic zone, although the city of Basel was completely destroyed in 1356 by an earthquake, the largest historical seismic event in Central Europe. The most active regions are precisely the Rhine Rift Valley and the Valais. Physiographic divisions. Switzerland is divided in three main geographic regions: the Swiss Alps, the Central Plateau and the Jura. They correspond each to clearly different geological realities. However, two small regions are not part of those three. The first, north of the Rhine in the Basel area, is situated beyond the Jura. The second, on the south in the Mendrisio area, is located in the Po Valley. But these two territories are not extended in comparison to the total area of the country. The Swiss Alps occupy the southern part of Switzerland. They were formed by the thrust of the African plate, which also caused the formation of the Jura in the northeast and the plateau between the two massifs. In terms of area, the Alps constitute about 60% of the country, the plateau 30% and the Jura 10%. The rugged terrain of the Jura and the Alps are very sparsely populated, except for some large valleys such as the Valais. Most of the population lives on the plateau, where the country's major cities such as Geneva, Zurich and Bern are located. Central Plateau. The Swiss plateau extends from Lake Geneva on the French border across central Switzerland to Lake Constance on the German and Austrian borders. In the north and northwest, the Swiss plateau is sharply delimited geographically and geologically by the Jura Mountains. In the south, there is no clear border with the Alps. Usually, the rising of the terrain to altitudes above 1,500 meters, which is very abrupt in certain places, is taken as a criterion for delimitation. The plateau has an average altitude of 580 meters. Even though the Swiss plateau forms a basin, it is by no means a flat territory and it is covered with rolling hills, lakes and rivers. Most of Switzerland's large lakes are located in the plateau. Both Lake Geneva and Lake Constance are located in the plateau but are shared with other countries. The largest lake totally in Switzerland, Lake Neuchâtel, is located in the Swiss Plateau. The Swiss Plateau is crossed by three great river valleys and the smaller Thur Valley. While the headwaters of these four rivers all lie in the Alps, they all cut across the plateau between the Alps and the Jura Mountains. Near Schaffhausen, the Rhine passes through the Rhine Falls, Europe's largest waterfall. The Rhine Falls are 150 meters wide and 25 meters. The plateau occupies about one-third of the land area of Switzerland, and about two-thirds of the population live in this area. The population density on the plateau averages about 450 people per square kilometer. In the regions around Lake Geneva, Lake Zurich and other cities, the population density exceeds 1,000 people per square kilometer. As well as a majority of the population, the Swiss plateau is also home to the majority of industry, manufacturing and farming in Switzerland. The farms are generally small and very organized. Most farms include small meadows alternating with fields with a variety of crops and small wooded areas. Alps. The Swiss Alps form part of a chain of mountains that stretch across southern Europe and isolate northern Europe from the Mediterranean Sea. Several important passes through the Alps are located in Switzerland, and control of the passes has been important throughout Switzerland's history. The Alps have an average altitude of 1,700 meters and cover nearly two-thirds of the total surface area. Within the Alps there are 48 mountains that are 4,000 meters or higher. The Alps are the watershed of Western Europe. The Rhine River, together with its tributaries the Aare River and the Thur River, drain about two-thirds of the water into the North Sea. The Rhone and the Ticino drain about 18% of the water into the Mediterranean Sea. The Inn, which flows into the Danube outside of Switzerland, drains about 4.4% of the water into the Black Sea. The Swiss Alps also contain many of Central Europe's glaciers. There are about 1,800 glaciers which cover 1,200 square kilometers of the total glaciated area of the Alps. The Alps are a popular tourist destination and are one of the most recognizable symbols of Switzerland. The tallest point in Switzerland, Monte Rosa, in Canton Valley, is located in the Alps, as is tallest mountain wholly in Switzerland, the Dom. One of the most recognizable symbols of Switzerland, the Matterhorn, is also located in the Alps. The Matterhorn is the seventh highest peak in the Swiss Alps and is the most photographed mountain in Switzerland. The tallest mountain in the northern outlier or Bernese Alps is the Pfisterer Horn. Switzerland encompasses a significant portion of the south side of the Alps. Most of it is constituted by the canton of Ticino, almost reaching the plains of the Po and including Switzerland's lowest point on Lake Maggiore. The canton of Graubünden is also partially located on the south side of the Alps, with the four valleys of Missox, Bregaglia, Pacciavo and Mustere. Finally, the canton of Valais comprises the upper Deveria Valley, located south of the Simplon Pass. Jura. The Jura is a limestone range running from Lake Geneva to the Rhine River. This area makes up about 12% of Switzerland's land area. Located about 700 meters above sea level, this region is characterized by a limestone highland with deep river valleys. The limestone rock in the Jura is a Jurassic period rock with numerous fossils and dinosaur tracks. The name Jurassic actually refers to the Jura region where these fossils were studied at the end of the 18th century. The Jura is considered one of the most important sites for dinosaur footprints in the world. In one area near the village of Cortu, over 13,000 footprints were discovered in between 2002 and 2011. The range is being continually built up and decreasing in width by mountain building, accommodating the compression from alpine folding as the main alpine orogenic front moves roughly northwards. The deformation becomes less pervasive away from the younger, more active alpine mountain building. Structurally, the Jura consists of a sequence of folds, the formation of which is facilitated by an evaporitic décollement layer. The box folds are still relatively young, and this is evident in that they define the shape of the overlying landscape. meaning that they have not existed long enough to experience erosion and thus are evidence of recent mountain building. The folds comprise three major bands of building evidence, dated roughly by era: the Malm, Dogger, and Lias. Each era of folding represents effects on a previously shallow marine environment, is evidenced by beds with particular carbonate sequences, containing abundant bioclasts and oolitic divisions between layers. The Jura Mountains rise in Swiss territory to a height of 1,679 meters at Mont Tendre. Other high summits are La Dole, the Chasseron, and the Chasseral, all located in the western part of the range, in the cantons of Vaud, Neuchâtel and Bern. Hydrology. Switzerland has 6% of all freshwater reserves in Europe. The country shares 5 river basins and some of the largest lakes in Western Europe with its neighbors. It is the source of several major European rivers that ultimately flow into the North Sea, into the Mediterranean Sea, into the Black Sea and into the Adriatic Sea. Most of the great Swiss rivers, being in their origin mere mountain torrents, tend to overflow their banks, and hence much has been done to prevent this by embanking them, and regaining arable land from them. So the Rhine, the Rhone, the Aar, the Reuss, and in particular the great work on the Linth carried out by Hans Conrad Escher, who earned by his success the surname of von der Linth, and on the Zihl near the lakes of Neuchâtel and Biel, while the diversion of the Cantor from its junction with the Aar to a channel by which it flows into Lake Thun was effected as early as 1714. Switzerland has considerable reserves of groundwater, and a large number of lakes, large and small, can be found in most areas. The two most extensive, those of Geneva and of Constance, balance each other, as it were, at the southwest and northeast corners of the land. But neither of these is wholly Swiss, this distinction being claimed by the next in size, that of Neuchâtel, Lake Maggiore coming next in the list, and being followed by the wholly Swiss lakes of Lucerne and of Zurich. Then come Lake Lugano, Lake Thun, Lake Biel, Lake Zug, Lake Brienz, Lake Wallenstadt and Lake Merten. These 13 only are over 20 square kilometers in extent. 10 of them are in the Rhine basin, 2 in that of the Po, and 1 in that of the Rhône. There are no large lakes in the Swiss portion of the Inn basin, the most extensive being that of Sils. Smaller alpine lakes such as the Ocean Sea are innumerable, and often constitute popular tourist destination. Since the 20th century a large number of dams have been built in the Alps and elsewhere, resulting in many artificial lakes. The largest are the Sils Sea and the Lake of Gruyere, both approximately 10 square kilometers in extent. Also notable is Lac des Dix, withheld by the Grande Dixence, the tallest gravity dam in the world. In total, lakes and reservoirs contain 50% of the stored water, glaciers 28%, groundwater 20% and rivers 2%. Climate. In Switzerland, where the height above sea level ranges from 193 to 4,634 meters, many climates are naturally found, from the regions of olives, vines, oaks and beeches, pines and firs, to those of the high mountain pastures, rhododendrons, and of eternal snow. In most inhabited regions of Switzerland, at lower altitudes, the weather is generally moderate. On the plateau, freezing temperatures generally occur during December–early March, with an average temperature of 9 degrees Celsius for elevations between 500 to 600 meters. On the plateau the average precipitation is 1,000 mm with a range of about 800–1,300 mm. The higher elevations of the Jura and the Alps naturally cause lower temperatures, and in the high Alps glaciers exist. The Jura and foothills typically have more precipitation, with an average of 1,200–1,600 mm, while the high Alps may have over 2,500 mm. Ticino, on the south side of the Alps, has subtropical vegetation and is usually 2 to 4 degrees Celsius warmer and wetter than the Swiss plateau. In the Köppen climate classification, The Swiss plateau is classed as maritime temperate or oceanic climate, and the Alps are considered tundra climates, or a maritime temperate area will have changeable, often overcast weather. Summers are cool due to cloud cover, and winters are milder than expected due to latitude. The Jura will be slightly cooler due to higher altitude. Within the Alps, temperatures and snowfall correlate to altitude. Climatic diversity, political divisions and greater regions. As a federal state, Switzerland is composed of 26 cantons, which are further divided into districts and municipalities. Each canton was a fully sovereign state with its own borders, army and currency from the Treaty of Westphalia until the establishment of the Swiss federal state in 1848. There are considerable differences between the individual cantons, most particularly in terms of population and geographical area, hence 7 larger and more homogeneous regions have been defined. They do not, however, constitute administrative units and are mostly used for statistical and economical purposes.